It's the year 2021. Humanity is on the brink of destruction. But there's a silver lining.
I honestly still have no idea what to say.
No, neither do I. It's weird because you're suddenly put on a spot where you have to say something instead of just hanging out on a call. Friends apart.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that like this is the first episode, so there's literally no one putting us on the spot right now, right?
That's right. There's really no pressure. No reason to think anything. No.
Koalas have two vaginas.
Is that true or is that a myth?
I think that's true, actually.
I never met a koala. You know what? Every time I think about doing something in the media, like a long time ago, I was obsessed about becoming a YouTuber, but then I never had like a topic or a niche that I thought I was good enough or knowledgeable enough in to do, and I didn't want to do it to be famous because I think anyone who ever tries to do it to get famous, like it never really it comes off as like they're trying too hard or something. But then would think about doing a podcast or something, I get really super meta in my head about, oh, what does a good podcaster talk about, and like overanalyze the structure of all these other podcasts. Think like,
All right, cool. With that being said, I welcome you guys to our podcast. That will definitely not be meta at any point in time. We know 100% what we're talking about at all times, since we're experts at literally everything. Okay, good. Now, since we got that out of the way, I guess we should sort of briefly introduce ourselves. I think it would be a fun idea for me introducing you and you introducing me, just to get people even more confused right from the get-go. So yeah, I'll start. So the other guy talking is Jason. He is a guy from Canada, and he studied abroad for a couple of years in Germany, and that's where we met. And we sort of become like real good friends during his studies here. And now that he went back to Canada, abandoned me, left me like a child without a mother or a father, completely by myself, incapable of just pursuing life in general, I'm just left here, and he just escaped back to Canada. So yeah, that's Jason. He's a great guy.
oh, thank you for that kind introduction. I'd say most of that is fairly accurate, especially the part about escaping. um, I really just wanted to get away from the German regime and the oppressive government, and all those stereotypes. What am I trying to say here? Um, yeah, the other. So this is my friend Franz. Um, he is a professional know-it-all in a sense, and we. I guess I could say the same thing. We became friends. I think we met formally on a bus um, for the first time, and promptly started discussing in-depth relationships about 30 seconds after we met. So that was a really, for a kind of 0 to 60 moment. So that was how I knew we were going to be good friends after that period. And he's an excellent cook.
It's 100. 0 to 100.
Very quickly, yeah. If we were dating, we would have been married already, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I was telling my dad about us doing a podcast. You've met him,
Yeah.
and he's a really supportive guy. Like, unironically, he's really a super supportive guy of pretty much everything I do, no matter what. So I was just talking to him a couple of days ago about the podcast, and he was like, you know, I like the idea. It's great doing something creative, and it's also great that Jason and you keep up your friendship, even though you're now like far distance wise. But I'm just wondering, so why are you exactly recording stuff you talk about? And I was like, you know that? I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe some people would find it entertaining. And he just gave me a really weird look. And he was like, so you guys think the shit that you're talking about is so damn interesting that everyone needs to listen to it, right?
it, it's either a testament to um, our massive ego or the idea that we just want to maybe share a little corner of our world and someone might be able to relate to it. You know, we're living in this time where like everyone wants validation for their really stupid opinions, and I feel like that's something that we can offer, providing, because like we're approaching, I don't know, 8 billion people in this world, and by now I think every experience must have been experienced by at least one person. So if we can talk about that and someone's like, holy shit, I know that, I know what that's like, you know, maybe we'll get 2 listeners, 3 listeners. It's going to be a super niche community of Canadians who moved to Germany and then moved back, and then Germans who knew a Canadian who moved there and moved back. But I do it for them.
Yeah, and I just do it out of spite at this point.
This fucking guy left me in this country, which you're going to abandon as well. So I don't really know how that works.
Abandoning my country?
Well, let's not say abandon is a harsh word. Briefly exit for some time, maybe.
Called colonialism, and maybe you've heard something about that?
No, I wasn't around then.
All
I
right, that's
don't
cool.
remember.
So earlier that day, that I was talking to my dad, I also had another, really weird experience. Um, so at my work, we have a couple of printers, like huge printers, those industrial style things. And you know, you would figure it's year 2021, and there's really not a lot that we haven't achieved in the sense of like technical stuff and discoveries that have been made. Like, we're really advanced by now. And I was just trying to print out that one word page. Um, that didn't work. And I tried again. Again, didn't work. So I called our IT guy, a really capable guy in his like early 20s, I guess. He was like, okay, so Word has problems talking to the printer. So, I remember when we had Windows 98 on my dad's computer, and we had a way smaller, way cheaper printer. Must have been like early 2000s. I had to print something for a school project, and printer could understand Word just fine. So, what's going on here? He's like, yeah, it's just weird with all those updates, and sometimes they just start miscommunicating. And I'm still not sure what that exactly means. The only thing I know is that the more we advance, the worse printers seem to get. Like, have you noticed that? How come, like, every single piece of technology seems to be advancing, but just printers seem to just be getting worse?
Oh, I've got opinions on printers. A lot of
Let-
opinions on printers. Um, yeah. Uh, we just got some new printers at work. We had one originally, and so like we're a startup company, so budget's important, but we also just got a lot of money in funding, so we're like dropping tens of thousands of dollars on new pieces of equipment. And my boss is like getting all of the fill your own ink cartridge with like the injected like the you get the syringe and you inject your own ink. Like this guy is so cheap that he'll spend like $20,000 on a piece of equipment, but he's like, no, I need to save $40 on ink, so I'll inject this myself. But then the printer has like a there's like a chip in the cartridge that can tell somehow that the ink is counterfeit, so it only lets you print like half the number of pages, even though you fill it up the same amount, which already drives me nuts. Um, because it's like cheaper to buy a new printer each time you need new ink at this point, so that like it doesn't even matter. But then they have the audacity to hire esteemed basketball championship player Shaquille O'Neal to hawk their wares with their new like ink tank printer that is like, yeah, this printer, it's got lots of ink. You can print thousands of pages without it running out. Motherfucker, you are solving the problem that you created. That you do this on purpose, and then you're like, look, we solved the problem, as if you're like a pharmaceutical company where they're like, we both created and cured AIDS in the same week. Oh, and I'm like, so that was our first printer at work, and then eventually we're like, after the third or fourth time of like donning a lab coat and going Breaking Bad on this fucking printer, uh, we eventually just ejected it out the window into the dumpster. And then we got two new printers. We got like a laser printer and a color printer. And they're both, like they both have scanners and everything. Um, and the one is like $1,000 printer, and like they're both on the network, so you should be able to find them for any computer. And for some reason, the one just never shows up, but you can still print to it sometimes. It's almost useless. And then the other one's like, uh, it's the Shack printer, but it's so fucking loud. And my boss had like a meeting. Like, surely they should have been able to I'm sorry, this is a really long rant on printers.
And I'm still trying to follow up on how Shaquille used printers to give us AIDS, but yeah, just continue.
um, and then so we got this printer, and like it's 2021 now. We got a printer in 1998 in my house that was like, it was like an old car, so that when you turned it on, like you had to turn it on 30 minutes in advance of printing, because it would be for like 30 minutes it'd be like cleaning the heads and like figuring out what the fuck it was. um so but fast forward to today, surely they figured out how to make vacuum cleaners in cars quieter, but they haven't figured out how to make printers quieter. So my boss scheduled a meeting in our office, and then like knowingly scheduled the meeting, and then decided to print a 70-page report in full color on this printer. And so the entire time he's like, so Jason, what do you think? And it's just like, you know, like interrupting my sentence every. I'm like, I'm sorry, how long is this gonna go? Oh, it's a 74 pages. It's oh yeah, great. So they're too loud. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that was the whole point. Um, it's funny because just for everyone out there, we did not premeditatively talk about this, right? I did not know that printers took up such a sore space in your heart. But yeah, I'm happy that it's
Yeah,
out there, and
I
I'm
supplanted a printer as my father figure, so it's a soft spot for me.
just really happy that I got to know you even better, and your very, very particular opinion on printers.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great, though. But tell me, so I didn't really get the whole Shaquille O'Neal part. So did he like? I know that Shaq is infamous for advertising everything. I mean, even in Germany, I got that. but that's mostly through the American media I consume.
Uh-huh.
Like Shaquille O'Neal is known in Germany, but he's not a Oliver Kahn or Lothar Matthäus, like
Mm.
actually famous guys that you probably wouldn't know of. But yeah, so tell me, what's the whole Shaquille O'Neal false advertising printers about?
Didn't even occur to me that you've never seen that commercial. So I don't remember the company, but he was like the spokesperson for the printer. I don't know why him, but I think it's because he's really big and they're trying to say that this printer has such big ink cartridges that you can print forever. And so they got Shaq to be like, buy this printer. Like, it's got tons of ink. And then that was it. Like, I don't see the connection. Seemed more like it's a famous person. I know that famous person. And if he, you know, can tolerate this printer, then maybe I can too. Um,
Wait a second, let me get this right. So you figure if a multi-millionaire is able to stand the way a particular printer works, you might be able to stand that as well, because you got the same requirements for a printer as a, I don't know, 7 foot something basketball player, multi-millionaire guy in the States does for his printer.
I think that's a reasonable assumption. Yes.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what Shaq's printing, but he's printing a lot of it. So
There's in everything you just said, there's such a obvious racially loaded joke that I'm definitely not gonna make, because I'm not planning on getting canceled during our first episode. Um, but let's just say I would really appreciate if in the future companies hiring huge basketball players would also fulfill the obvious innuendo of the printer being able to print a lot more than smaller, wider printers. Okay, let me just say that. So next time I'm buying a printer by, I don't know, fucking HP or something, advertised by
Mhm.
I don't know, Steph Curry, I would really appreciate
Yeah.
the ink just lasting a whole lot longer than this weird brother printer advertised by hologram of Bruce Lee.
So you're saying you want it to go the distance.
Yeah,
You want it to be able to print all night long if needed.
exactly. And yeah,
I need to print so bad.
and that's that. I think we probably go on to another subject, because at this point it's getting really weird. Uh,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, something that I have been wanting to ask you for such a long time, but a couple of years ago when we met, I figured let's just wait with that question until we got our own podcast. Um,
So this was premeditated.
a
2 years in the
a
making.
100%, 100%. So I'm not entirely sure how North American countries know European countries, because a lot of times when I talk to people from North America, a lot of times there would always be this assumption that like there's two kinds of European culture. One kind would be all the stuff that we just got from North American countries um, after the Second World War.
Yeah, like music and movies and stuff.
Yeah, like the whole, let's just say, Coca-Cola based culture.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's this really bourgeois stuff that we had, a couple of 100 years ago, when North America was, you know, still a pile of wilderness, I guess. Um, and it's always sort of like looked down upon.
Hmm.
So, how were you raised? Was Europe something that
Hmm.
like you and your peers were sort of like looking towards as something, oh, if I could only live there for some time, or if I could learn some of the culture, it would be really, really cool? Or was it more like, yeah, no, those guys really don't have any, I don't know, guns?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah,
it's a good question. I would say it's kind of weird because I wouldn't say we ever really learn a much like our first introduction, unfortunately, to Europe is through history class or maybe geography, um, because I can't speak for the U.S., but I assume because they have such like a an identity in their own culture that they focus so much on it because and like in terms of like diversity and Canada's pretty big too, and like we don't have nearly as many people but we have a lot of history, so I think that always takes precedent. And so we tend to only learn about Europe through like kind of pop culture in some ways, but never it's definitely one sided. Like Europe learns a lot more about North American culture than the other way around. Um, one one thing I remembered when I was in Germany was we were playing a game on a on a trip to Switzerland. We're all on a lunch break, sitting around a picnic table, and we're like, "Oh, let's play a game. See, go around and everyone has to name a capital city of a country in Europe." And like they're all from like all the people were from Spain and Finland and other European countries, and so like they all learned this and they were going around, and then it got to me, and now I was like they'd said all the obvious ones and gotten into like I don't know countries I'd never heard of, literally, um, yeah, like France,
Spain,
Spain, yeah, um,
Germany.
some place like called Ukraine, and
Okay, yeah.
but like yeah, I didn't know, but at the same time, the interesting thing is that we don't learn about them, but we learn about how other people feel about it, and that is that it is a better place to live, and it's cleaner, and everything is like more prosperous in your like quality of life, but at the same time no one actually wants to learn about it, is kind of the weird sort of that's my experience, at least. I don't want to assume that everyone else had the same experience, but at least within my circle of friends, like that's kind of how I learned about it.
Yeah, so quickly before we continue, I think we have to make one thing perfectly clear. Whenever we're saying something like, me as a European or German, or Jason something like, you know, me as Canadian, um, we're obviously talking in the names of everyone on this continent, and we know everything that our peers and countrymen know and feel and think.
That's right.
So don't even bother us with, you can't speak for everyone. You're just one guy. I don't want to hear anything like that. We do, and we can, and we will. Okay. So that
Now that we have that settled.
Germans don't know shit about Canada.
Hmm.
I just
Yeah,
wanted to
that's
put that
pretty.
out there. I think if you would take like 100 Germans and ask them, I mean, they would probably know where Canada is, but then I want to ask them, like, so what are Canadians about? And I don't know, I guess the first thing people would maybe say is it's cold there,
Hmm.
but that's it. And you're actually the first person who, you know, opened me to the fact that you have summer. Um, and I felt really, really dumb after you told me. And I think that in general, like the North American people that I met, at least, they knew more about Europe than I or most Germans probably would know about at least Canada. I mean, the US is a whole different beast, but I think most people kind of assume Canada and the States are kind of the same thing.
The
Uh,
U.S. is
uh,
the loud person shouting at the bus stop that you can't ignore because you can hear them through your headphones.
yeah, and there go all the
So,
US listeners. That's great.
mean, I mean, prove me wrong. Like, I'm sorry. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it just seems to me, at least, and also the couple of weeks that I spent there, it seemed like a more flashy country, I'd say. Um, there's a lot of emphasis on outward appearance,
mhm.
and that's cool. I mean, every country's got their own thing going for them. I mean, Canadians are very polite. The US are quite flashy. We killed a bunch of people. It's just a cultural thing, I guess. And
Mm.
I don't know, the Canadians that I've met, which is you, um, have kind of left me with quite a good experience, I'd say. So 5 out of 5
That's
for
good.
that. Uh, would definitely come back and recommend.
I'll report back to my other brothers,
That's good. That's good.
my Canadian fellow brothers, all of them. Yeah. I mean, do you have questions?
Yeah,
Because I'm happy to field.
I actually do. So I guess what interests me the most is because as a German, especially as a Bavarian, we have this thing of us being mistaken for Austrians a lot. Which, in case you're listening from, somewhere in the US or Canada, you might not be aware. I'm not even kidding. Austria and Germany are two completely different countries. And
Mhm. Now.
yeah, come on, dude. That was a low blow.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So people tend to mistake us for Austrians sometimes, the Lederhosen and the really, really typical trumpet style music and a lot of beer and pretzels and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
that's what we would usually be mistaken for. Um, but
Yeah.
then again, a lot of people kind of assume that Canadians, as I was saying before, Canadians and US Americans are sort of the same. So, what would you
Hmm.
say are like your top differences between at least the Canadians you met and the US people that you met, especially since you're someone that also, spent some time in the States? So, maybe you can put some light on that.
Yeah. I would say that it's very diverse in a way. So like I'm from Ontario and that has a lot of similarities with the states that it shares the border with. So I would say that Toronto is very much like a mini New York, and the attitudes and people there are very much closer to that than they are to where I live now, which is in Nova Scotia, where people are very proud of like their Irish heritage and they love to flaunt their European, cultural stuff. And
Could you elaborate on that a little? Like, what you mean that Ontario people are kind of like uh, U.S. people? In which way?
well, I mean, so I guess in there it's very much like the life is really fast there. They've all got places to be and they need to be there right now. Um, Everything's expensive and they're kind of like they don't do small talk. There's if you bump into someone, they'll say sorry, but it's like a knee jerk reaction kind of thing where you're taught as a kid to say sorry, and like the subway doors literally say sorry, like something please mind the gap, sorry. I don't remember. I don't remember what it says, but like we're taught to say that, but in general everyone's just like too busy, and I wouldn't say they're not friendly, but they're all just like it's like tunnel vision, and it's very much because it's so diverse, there isn't any one kind of culture in that sense. Like Germany is obviously there's immigration to every country, but I would say Germany is very in touch with their cultural identity compared to on like Ontario is very much where other people come, and it's like a collection of all these other cultures, which is great, but it also means that I don't think there's one defining sort of like uh, identity in a way, in like in a broad sense, versus like Nova Scotia, where a lot of the people here are descendants of immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, that sort of thing. And then a lot of Germans actually retire here. There's a huge German community, so it's very like European kind of culturally, yeah. Um, versus in like Alberta. Alberta's like the Texas of Canada, where they have huge. I'm not even joking. Like there's huge ranches. Like they're very conservative. There's oil production there. They there was a large Trump following. I assume there still is, but they're now embarrassed by it. Um,
Oh, why?
well, because he never came back to storm the White House and put Joe Biden in Guantanamo Bay. So now they're like, oh shit, that never happened.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and then Quebec, Quebec is. I won't offend anyone from Quebec because I love them very much, and they produce great beer, and they're very passionate, and it is a very very different place than the rest of Canada. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure the U.S. is like diverse in that sense, but we're we're definitely less. I don't know how to say, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like one of those things that just feels different when you go there. Like you go to the grocery store and you see the same types of foods, but they're all new brands. So you don't have any sort of like association with the quality of it kind of thing, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So, one thing that you said really, really stuck out to me, regarding like the cultural identity, I'd say. Um, because as a German in his very, very late 20s, um, I've grown up, you know, I've grown up in a really rural area. But regardless where you are in Germany, you will encounter a lot of different cultures. And we have a huge Turkish community here. We have a huge Polish community here and Russian community here. And everyone pretty much gets along. Like, obviously, you would have your occasional dickheads, but I mean, overall, people get
Mm-hmm.
along. And what I think is really interesting is that in Germany, like the first generation of foreigners that come, be it from Turkey, Russia, wherever, they really, really want to be in Germany. Like they're like, we love being in Germany. Germany is such a great country, and it gave us the opportunity to prosper and to build our lives for ourselves. Because in a lot of cases, people are, politically, what's it called? Chased down by their former governments, pretty
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
and then they come here, find peace, and get to build a life for themselves, which is great, obviously. And then, especially people from my generation and younger ones that have peers that are like second or third generation immigrants, um, all of a sudden it kind of changes, and they seem to be more like, yeah, Germany really sucks. I really want to go back to my home country. And like their parents usually are like, bitch, you've never even been to your home country. Like you don't want to go there. Like just be happy that you're somewhere peaceful now. And they're like, so and when I experience different cultures in the US, and I assume it's kind of the same thing in Canada then. People are aware of their heritage, but it's not like the sentiment of we want to go back there. It's
Yeah.
more like, we have this heritage and we're proud of it and we want to uphold some of its values and traditions, but at the same time, we are
Hmm.
just happy to be a part of the country we're in right now. And I guess that's maybe comes from the geographical distance that people that come to Germany have, as compared to people that come to Canada or the US, where for us it's maybe just a couple hundred of kilometers of distance. And if
Yeah.
someone from
Yeah.
Turkey immigrates to Canada, it's literally thousands of miles then. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I wonder because like we have we have really big communities here, and especially like there's like a large like Asian populations. There's like Chinatown, where I don't know if those so much exist in other cities. Like if like Munich has a Chinatown, for instance, I don't know if that's a thing versus say Toronto or Ottawa or something. Like there's dedicated areas um, where that sort of culture has prospered, and then um, I can think of one example of there's a guy who's very famous in who always attends Toronto Raptors games, and I think he's Sikh, but he's got like season tickets every year, front row like floor seats, and he's got like a Raptors purple colored turban, and he's like fucking he loves the Raptors. He loves like Canadian culture and everything, and of all of the I would say Middle Eastern people I've met in Canada, they like love Canada and they love to be there, and it's like it's it's definitely different than I would say you've described for Germany
I mean,
in that
obviously,
sense.
it's the most sensible thing for us to talk about issues that um, people migrating to other countries have, since we're such diverse racial guys. Like,
Yeah.
we are
Oh
definitely
yeah.
not both white as snow, and my beard definitely is not sprinkled red, because I guess I have some sort of like Scandinavian thing going on there. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
you are a Viking.
Yeah, like my ancestors were probably even whiter than me, so I'm definitely the one who should be talking about those issues.
Oh
But
yeah.
anyway, so talking about heritage, did I tell you that I did one of those ancestry DNA tests?
Oh, you did. No. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, as expected. So
German.
yeah, you know how people take those tests and they're like, oh damn, I'm like 15% Kazakhstanian and like 20% Montenegrin and like
Hmm.
10% Chinese for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for me it was like 80% German. And
20% Austrian.
dude, you want to insult me,
Sorry.
huh? You want to insult me?
Sorry, I take it back.
Yeah. No, it was actually French.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so funny thing is, it sounds more exotic to you at first, but then you think that Germany borders on both countries. Literally. So, like, my ancestors were completely German, and I might have some people, having taken the walk for a couple of kilometers from France to Germany.
They actually just got lost, and that's how that happened.
Probably. And yeah, that's that. And uh, my test really didn't turn up anything interesting. The only interesting thing that did happen, though, and now listen up, my friend, because if you think I'm a one-dimensional white guy, your world's about to be rocked.
All
um
right, let's hear it.
so on ancestry.com, you have this possibility of connecting with distant relatives,
Hmm.
which I think is amazing. Unfortunately for me, though, I couldn't find anyone until a couple of weeks ago. I received a mail from Ancestry telling me that I got a message
Hmm.
from and I'm 100% real, all right? I'm
Hmm.
not gonna say my last name now, but it's my last name and the first name Rashonda.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. Um, Beautiful African American lady from Albuquerque who
Oh.
texted me if I knew her mom, which seemed like kind of a weird message at first, but turns out that at least we share the last name, but I do not know where and if we are actually related to each other. But I
Hmm.
thought it was quite, neat to know that my last name, which is like a really like 100% white last name,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
traveled so far.
Is it common? I don't think I've ever seen it other than yours, though.
Oh, it's really not common.
Okay.
So there's these last name registries that you can go to,
Hmm.
and there's like less than I think 300 people registered with my last name,
Wow.
in Germany at least. But yeah,
I would say mine's also not very common, at least in North America. Um, but when you look back, like, I mean, spoilers, it's an Irish last name, but when we look back, like, you get possible suggestions on ancestry of, like, you might be related to this person. Does this person fit in this part of the family tree? And then, you know, all they really have to go on is the last name. Like, it's Irish. You're Irish. Is it this person? And like you get a birth date, and that's it. Like, I don't fucking know. But
yeah, it's so strange because especially if you're thinking about all the people in the past that shared your last name,
mhm.
it might have just split up into two families at some point, like a few hundreds or a few thousands of years ago. You would never know about it, and then like 1,000 years later, because you're a bored guy sitting in your apartment and you're like, you know what I should do? I should probably take a DNA test because I'm so interesting. um, and then, like 1,000 years later, those distantly related ancestors sort of reach out to you again in the form of a Rashonda, um, that is like, you know, my mom. So I don't know. I think it's cool.
Well, do you?
I don't fucking know, man.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's it's
Did
it's
I?
it's a strange thing. So I think it's really cool that you can be in touch with your ancestry just like that. But I also think that, to be honest, it's kind of you know a wasteful experience for, I guess, like 99% of people doing that.
I would say yeah. It is kind of amazing though. My brother has been tracking the whole family's tree, and
Heard.
this. So I don't think I told you about this. So he had like the whole family tree mapped back to the 1700s or 1600s or something, and my uncle did the same thing on my mom's side. My brother's on my dad's side, and on my shocker on my mom's side, um, goes back to Germany. My grandmother was first generation Canadian from Germany, um, but on my dad's side, they're Irish, but like not, I don't know, tenth generation Canadian, because like we've been here for a long fucking time now. But my dad, like, I have my sister and my brother, who's actually a half brother from a different mother, my brother from a different mother, and he tracked all of our family tree, and this like never showed up or anything. But then all of a sudden on Ancestry, he got an email from somebody, and they're like, "Hey, is this your father?"
What?
Uh, and he's like, "I beg your fucking pardon. Um, is your father this man?" And he said, "Yeah, because this is my father as well." And we're like, "What?" And it's like this 65-year-old man from, I don't know. He lives in Canada still,
Yeah.
obviously, but um, And so we find out like that apparently my dad had a child before my half brother, who's now 45, I want to say.
That is so
No,
fucking
no, it gets
amazing.
even more crazy because this guy was like, "Hey, by the way, I think you also have another sister who's like 2 years older than me."
No.
And I'm like, "What? Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, so like my dad has never talked about his past ever because I barely know what he does to begin with. I thought he was a drug mule for like the better part of the last 20 years of my life, hopping around South America. I should really be posting this on the internet. And like he's always been super shady about his past in general, and but like hearing this through these people, and the first was like, okay, maybe they just want something from us and they're just fishing for family, but
Mm.
they're like, no, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I just thought you should know, and then that was it. I think my brother went and met up with this guy like once just to get some information from him, but that was it. Like they didn't. He's got a wholly totally different life and doesn't want anything to do with us, but he thought we should know. And but like, so ancestry, it works sometimes, I
Yeah,
guess.
that. Damn. I shouldn't have led with the Rashonda story, shouldn't have? Yeah.
I thought I told you that already. I could.
No, you didn't, man. That's amazing. I mean, I knew parts of that story, but I mean, having the whole thing put together, that's amazing. Damn.
Yeah, I don't remember their names or anything, but it's wild.
All right. Now that we talked about profound family stuff like that, I
Yeah.
think it's time for us to go to my new and favorite segment. German words that I think you have no fucking idea what they actually mean, and I'm really, really, really anxious to find out this in equivalent in your language. So,
Oh, I like this.
um, I was just thinking about words that just do not make any sense that we have in German, and I would love to hear if there's an equivalent in English for that. Okay,
All
so
right.
today's word is Busenfreunde.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any idea what this could mean?
If I had to guess off the top of my head, it would be drinking buddies.
That's not too far off, but I guess you really try to go off booze there, right? And
Yeah,
fun,
I really
yeah,
latched onto that one.
yeah. Okay, so Busen, Busen, Freunde, which well literally means friends. The Busen part literally means tits. So yeah, the word is kind of like best buddies from childhood on, sort of.
Tits
Um,
buddies.
yeah, tits buddies, exactly.
Okay.
I just love that word. It's not a word that people.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there is. We do have one. Holy shit.
No.
Um, yeah. So, many people will maybe know Anne of Green Gables, um, here in Canada. Uh, and an old saying from a very long time ago, which is bosom buddies. Bosom also
Yeah,
meaning
yeah.
breasts, I guess. Bosom buddies, bosom friends or
Damn,
something.
that's literally the same.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. I'm totally amazed. Um,
My alternative, my audible there was friends who go to the strip club together.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those two things might overlap sometimes. Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. Okay, cool. So this is it for today's podcast. I would love you guys to interact with us either on Twitter at friendsapartpod or via email friendsapartpod@gmail.com. And yeah, we talk to you guys next week again. And maybe we're gonna get to the bottom of more of racially loaded printers, as well as Jason's personal family history. All right, guys,
Perfect.
you have a good one. Bye.